Hello and welcome back to season 6 of Franchising Brand Stories. I'm Harvey, host of Franchising Brand Stories.
I'm Aaron and I'm Director of Business Development at Molly Maid.
Fantastic. And welcome to Franchising Brand Stories. This is the show, and I'm going to do it where we get under the hat of some of the top brands, franchising brands in the UK and in the world. And Franchising Brand Stories is brought to you by Franrex, specialist staff and executive recruiters to the UK franchise industry. So what do? We are a live show and we get to hear what's behind these fantastic brands, what's at the heart of these brands. And it's live. Well, it's live if it's about 5:15 on Tuesday, the 3rd of April. And we encourage you to get involved, because if you are someone that is looking to invest in a franchise business, then these shows are designed to help you understand a little bit more about these things. And we love it when you get involved, so please do if you are here. And even if you are watching this in the future, then pop a comment in, because we can see it in the future as well. So that would be great. Anyway, Aaron, welcome to Franchising Brand Stories.
Thanks, Harvey. Nice to be here.
Yeah, fantastic to have you here. What we're going to do is we always start by just trying to find out a little bit about the business and where you're at right now. So perhaps we could start with a nice obvious one. What is Molly Maid?
Sure. So Molly Maid is the most recognised domestic cleaning brand in the UK. Last year we celebrated our 40th anniversary. And yeah, our primary function is to clean people's homes. But for us, it's more about giving them time back to spend doing something that they enjoy, spending time with family, friends, socialising. So yeah, it's as much about that as it is the actual function of cleaning their home, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't think of that, when we're thinking about cleaning our own homes, the fact that we do spend a long time doing it, and that time could be, spent, doing things that are much more enjoyable, and time is so precious, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that's something that we've really seen over certainly the years since I've been involved. I've been Molly Maid 16 years now. And I think, people's lives have become so much more fast paced. For a lot of people, if you're in, kind of household with, partner or children, both partners often working, obviously with the children as well, it just means that people have a lot less time on their hands. So yeah, for us, we've seen a huge increase in demand as a result of that, and it's certainly something that we can going to expect to continue to see into the future, really.
Yeah, fantastic. No, that's great stuff. So in terms of how many franchisees that you've got, whereabouts in the sort of the UK are you based? Give us an idea as to sort of where you're at as a business right now.
Yeah, so we're based, our support office is based in Maidenhead in Berkshire, so home counties, which is a lovely setting for us. But yeah, we have franchisees all over the country. So we currently have 70, soon to be 72, with 2 new franchise owners on training next week. And they cover the whole of the UK. So we've got kind of 5 franchises based up in Scotland, all the way down through the UK, right to the south coast. Across the Norwich, and in fact we have actually our new franchise, one of the new ones on training next week is Devon, so that'll be the first time we actually get a marker down there as well, so we're very excited about that.
Fantastic. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, 72 franchisees is a really, really good number, and clearly you've got a great spread across the UK.
Yeah, I mean, I think the exciting bit for us is we've probably still got over 160 areas available.
Wow.
And obviously that changes still quite considerably, because I think the reference I made earlier is that, more and more people are now deciding to have help around the home. So for us, we're seeing that demand increase even more. So whenever we kind of, reevaluate our data, which we do kind of, every few years, we're seeing the amount of demand just increasing and increasing. So that allows us to kind of reshape the areas that are available. And as I say, we've probably seen that, in the last 10 years increase from about 100 available areas to now where we're at about 160. So yeah, there's so much opportunity for expansion, and that's obviously one of the exciting opportunities that, you know, no doubt we'll come on to a bit later.
Fantastic. Just before we get into sort of the main part of today's story, let's just welcome a couple of people who have joined us here live today. We have the lovely Nick Blevin. Great to have you with us, Nick. Hello, everyone. Glad to have made it to the event. Well, it's fantastic to have you here. And we've also got Simon Wise with us. And Simon is our lovely sponsor from FranRex. So great to have you with us, Simon. And he's put, hello, franchise friends. Great to be here. It's fantastic to have you here. And looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts as we go along today. So this is the part where we're going to take it back in time.
Okay.
It's a time machine. So this is now not just sort of where and how did it all begin for Molly Maid, but also where did your journey start? So perhaps we can begin with a brief history of Molly Maid, and then where you fitted into that.
Yeah, sure. So as I touched upon, I think earlier, you know, last year we celebrated our 40th anniversary.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. Obviously, I haven't been around that long, but yeah, Molly Maid started in the UK back in 1984. Prior to that, originally launched in Canada. It was actually a couple who originally had lived in America and saw the kind of well-heeled of Manhattan, that looking for that kind of cleaning service, but with very much a lack of kind of people there to facilitate it. So when they returned back to Canada, they saw the opportunity there. They saw a gap in the market where they felt that they could really develop and grow a brand that could provide that service professionally, because a lot of it had been done by individual cleaners, independent cleaners previously. So they went back, and that's really where kind of Molly Maid, the actual brand and the logo was formed. Following on to that, Jim McKenzie, he was very much an entrepreneur. He was at a marketing background, and he saw again that there was this kind of gap in the market for you know, home brands and particularly home cleaning. So he kind of had a look through the Yellow Pages equivalent in Canada and come across Molly Maid and thought, I like the sound of that name, and approached Adrian and Chris Stringer and said, look, I'd be interested in kind of working with you, but eventually taking it on. So that's pretty much what he did. So with a couple of additional shareholders, he acquired the Molly Maid brand, and I think that's, for us, is really where we got our DNA from. You know, Jim is still very much involved today in Molly Maid International. We still kind of meet with him, you know, regularly to discuss how the brands are doing. But yeah, so it started in Canada, moved to the USA, let's say into the UK in 1984, where it was acquired by, again, another entrepreneur, a friend of Jim's. And Pam always tells me the story is basically on the back of a fag packet. They agreed a deal in a bar over a drink somewhere, and came to the UK. So yes, so Pam Bader, who many will know, she was Malcolm's partner, and he basically, with many other businesses, said to her, look, I've got a little business for you to kind of run, and that's kind of where it started in the UK. So yeah, Pam was our CEO for nearly 30 years before she retired about 5 years ago. She's still a non-board exec, and obviously she was the first female chairperson of the BFA, which is a nice accolade for her as well.
Fantastic.
So yeah, so that's kind of really where Molly Maid kind of got to in 2015. It was then acquired by Kevin Hipkins and his wife through a management buyout. Kevin had previously been president of Molly Maid International, so he's been with the business now for over 31 years. And he saw the opportunity, really, having been living in the UK and part of our business for a number of years. He saw that as an opportunity, really, to kind of kick the brand on and take that further. So yeah, since 2015, Kevin has been the owner of Molly Maid UK, and that's kind of really where my story comes in. So I mean, I joined a couple of years before Kevin bought the business, so I've now been with Molly Maid for just over 16 years. My background previously was hospitality and hotel management, so I didn't really know a lot about cleaning when I joined, but I was assured that I didn't need to know a lot about cleaning, and that, you know, it's very much a people business, so it's communication, it's you know, working with both customers and staff, which is obviously I did have the experience in. So started off initially as a business advisor, then moved through to assistant director of franchise support a few years later. And then about 9.5 years ago now, moved into the role of business development. And that's an area that I've really enjoyed in that time, in both helping new franchise owners come on board, helping existing ones to resell their business and transfer it to new owners. So yeah, it's a really nice element of the role to be able to welcome new blood into the business. Obviously, it's quite an established brand. We've got lots of franchise owners that have been around for a long time. So naturally, there's a few that are coming around to kind of retirement and things like that. So yeah, bringing new blood into the business, new enthusiasm, new energy is something that's really important to us.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing that story. And it's I like the mug as well. On brand, love it.
Absolutely.
It's great to understand the story, not just the wider story of where Molly Maid, originated from, but I love how it originated here in the UK. That sort of that early conversation, that chance meeting. It's fantastic to hear that. It always fills me with entrepreneurial sort of glee when I hear that, because I think anybody who gets involved in franchising can relate to being an entrepreneur. And what a great story.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Pam's told me that many times over the years, and I think for anyone who kind of understands the franchising world, I think for a lot of people it's not as well known widely in kind of a lot of business kind of courses that are still discussed in universities around the country, but it is an avenue to allow people to get into business that doesn't necessarily have the experience, but they definitely can buy into a brand that has that ability to be able to help them grow and develop a business, which I think is hugely important.
Absolutely. We've got a few more people here, so I'd like to recognise the fact that we've got Joseph here. Joseph has put great event. Well, thank you, Joseph, and it's great to have you here as well. So looking forward to hearing your thoughts. We've got a good question coming up from Simon as well, so we're going to take that. And we've also got Darren here as well, so we're going to probably take a question from Darren after that as well. Let's just have a look at Simon's question here. And let's see what he's got to say. So Simon's put, why has franchising been so important and influential in Molly Maid's growth and success? It's a great question, because we heard of the origins of the story of how the brand grew, and that the need for that service to the end user of cleaning and freeing up that time. But why do you think franchising was that particular model of growth for the company?
Yeah, I mean, I think it links quite nicely with the actual service we provide, because the service we provide is a service that is, kind of people have weekly, fortnightly, monthly. So it's kind of replicating it's a very simple business model. We don't necessarily have, kind of a complicated or complex model. It's very simple. And I think that's kind of often where, franchising works really well. The brands that kind of understand how just to kind of find a service, a product, or something that is in demand and that people, kind of can place value to. And then it's about trying to find the best and the simplest way to execute that time and time again. And I think that's kind of fits quite neatly into, say, how the Molly Maid service works as well. So, yeah, I think, being able to, I guess, one of Pam's original things was to demonstrate and prove the model works by having some of her own in-house businesses that she'd started up. And I think having done that, she was then able to demonstrate to other people that the brand and the model works. And then she was able to guide them how they could replicate that in their area. So yeah, I think to Simon's question, it has been such an important part of growth, because, as I say, it allows us to, kind of to go to different areas around the country to implement the same model. And it doesn't really matter whether the business is in the northeast or the south. The model works, the same pricing structure works, which often surprises people, because a lot of perception is that often that the highest prices are going to be down south in and around the kind of the M25 corridor, but actually some of our strongest prices are up in the northeast, Teesside, Middlesbrough, Cheshire, Manchester. So yeah, again, I think having a brand that you can replicate and put anywhere in the country, that allows the business to grow, and I think that's been a big part of the success for Molly Maid.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said there about a simple business model. Simplicity in any business is one of the hardest things to achieve. And simplicity is key in a franchising business because you've got to replicate it. You want to grow it. You need to teach people how to do it in that same way. And the simpler you can keep it, the better. And it's with 72 franchisees, spread across the country. It's clearly something that, is working very well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the complexity of it comes in the fact that you have 72 people who are very different. They have come from different backgrounds, different experiences. So I think, if the business model is simple, then you can cope with the complexity of dealing with different people who learn in different ways, who have different requirements and needs for support and training and things like that. So yeah, I think otherwise, if you're dealing with a very complex business and then you add the complexity of lots of different people with different types of needs and requirements in, then that can become quite a challenge for the franchise.
Definitely, you're right. People learn in different ways. People are perhaps complex, but if you've got a simple business model, it's easier to apply that to different people. And it takes us quite nicely onto this, actually, because if you are a prospective franchisee and you're listening to this now, or you're listening to this in the future, and you're just trying to think, am I going to fit in here? Is it going to be right for me? Am I the right type of person? Have I got the right characteristics for this? So what type of people generally choose to become a franchisee at Molly Maid?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, we have people from all different walks of life. A lot of people initially come to me and say, look, I've got no cleaning experience. And I said, well, absolutely, I didn't have cleaning experience when I joined Molly Maid. And it's not about cleaning. Ours is a management business. So, the kind of qualities that we're looking for, really people who are kind of self-motivated driven, because I think that's one of the important aspects when you run your own business, is you do have to be a bit reliant on yourself to kind of self-motivate. And obviously, we'll come on to the support and that we provide, but to kind of get you up in the morning and when you're employed, you've got to do it, because otherwise you're going to be in trouble with your boss. But when it's your own business and you are the boss, you don't necessarily have that kind of additional motivation. So yeah, being able to kind of self-motivate yourself to do that. People that are hungry to grow a business, and I guess that's kind of what I talk to a lot of time. People kind of move away from wanting to be employed and be told what to do by someone else. They want to have the freedom to be able to kind of develop and grow something themselves, which I think is a huge draw for people. And obviously we touched upon the fact that franchise them allows them to do that, but with a reduced risk. So yeah, kind of driven, hungry, good attitude. We want to work with people that want to be part of a franchise, a brand. Now, it's not for everyone. Sometimes, we speak to people who are very entrepreneurial and, maybe necessarily following a structured system isn't quite for them. They like the freedom of doing it. So, yeah, as I say, it's not for everyone. But yeah, people who want to follow a brand, and also good communicators. I think that's a big part of our role is, you're dealing with staff, you're dealing with customers. So being able to be good communicators, and ultimately it comes down to leadership. I mean, something that we always say, and it's a big mantra of Kevin's, our president, but he always says it's people that are successful, not businesses. I think that's really true. Is you can have a great business, but if you haven't got the right person in charge, then it's not going to work. So yeah, we really put huge value in that. It's people that are successful and not businesses.
I love that. I mean, I always start off with these conversations with very little written down, but there's always so many gems for people to get from these conversations. And if you're a prospective franchisee, and you hear that phrase, that phrase sort of encompasses the fact that people are at the heart of your business and that they're important. And whether that's the people that are going to become franchisees, or whether that's the people that are doing the fantastic job of cleaning and freeing up that time for those people, all of it is about people. All of the success comes from people. And I really, really love that expression. It's something that I think franchisors need to recognize in every business.
Yeah, I mean, for us, obviously we don't sell a product, we sell a service, so really the product for us is our teams that are out there. As you say, they're the ones that are putting the graft in, day in, day out, whether, in the summer, in those hot weathers, doing, 3, 4, 5 cleans a day sometimes. So, we place, huge value on them as well, because as I say, they're the ones that deliver our service, and they're the ones that allow us to develop and grow successful businesses. So yeah, as you say, it's much about the franchisee as it is the staff that then deliver that in each of those businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really good to understand that not criteria, but to understand what elements are important to you, self-motivation, being hungry, attitude, communication. These are things that people can have from all sorts of different walks of life. But these qualities, these values are really key to finding the right people, and getting that thing right. There's a couple of things that I was going to say. We've got a QR code up on the screen right now. If you're somebody who's interested in franchising, interested in Molly Maid, interested in these businesses, then check out the QR code right now, because it's going to take you to a survey that hopefully will understand what you might want out of franchising. I'm going to put up a quick question, actually. I'm going to put up a quick question here from Nick, because I think this is an interesting question while we're talking about people, because it's so relevant. Nick's put, do you provide assistance to franchisees to recruit their cleaning staff, or are they responsible for local recruitment, and how do you ensure consistency? I think this is really important, because you're a people business, aren't you? And your people are really important. Your franchisees are important, and the fantastic people that do that job are important. Is that, do you help them out with that part?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the, I guess we're going to touch again on it a bit later, but we have our mindset is all about growth and helping franchisees, support and help franchisees grow their business is one of our kind of key mantras within Molly Maid. And then clearly, if they can't grow the business if they don't have the staff there to do it. So, it's a huge function of our support with all franchise owners. We really want to try and understand what the pinch points are that they're struggling with. Now, obviously, that can be quite localized. It can be quite, one area could be particularly finding it more difficult than others. I mean, particularly coming out of COVID, I think for us, that was probably one of the biggest times when we saw staff at a real struggle. I mean, traditionally, our business has kind of ebbed and flowed. When we see high customer demand, we typically find it a bit harder to recruit. And when kind of customer demand softens a little, then it's a bit easier to recruit. But yeah, coming out of COVID, we were in kind of, customer demand was just booming, and franchise owners were really struggling to be able to cope with it. I mean, for the first time ever, I think in our business, we had waiting lists of people just queuing up to have not only an estimate done, but then also having the clean done. And I'm talking weeks, waiting weeks for that, which is kind of really strange, because cleaning is normally very instant gratification. You inquire, you get a quote, and then you have the clean done pretty quickly. So for people to wait was quite a change. But yeah, so I mean, our role as the franchisor, we switched all focus very quickly, and again, being quite a small kind of support team here, we can be very agile in how we react. So we switched all focus from customer acquisition to staff recruitment, whether that was through national recruitment campaigns that we heavily supported with investment as well, whether that was kind of local opportunities with social media on local groups and things like that. So yeah, we put a huge kind of plan together, and that had a massive benefit. We saw a 42% increase in applications over a kind of 3 or 4 month period, which had a massive impact in helping franchise owners to gain capacity, which then allowed them to really take advantage of the demand that was out there, and the results have been quite evident since.
That's fantastic, and really good to understand that support and that agile nature of the support as well. Because again, when you're looking at this as a prospective franchisee, and you're just looking at what happens during some difficult times, during some challenging times, it's really good to understand how you help people. People are your business, and it's clear, it comes across in droves that people are your business, and it's lovely to hear. One of the things I wanted to do was understand what the prospect journey is for prospective franchisees. So again, let's say you're listening today and you're interested in franchising, you're interested in Molly Maid, you want to take the next steps and you want to make that phone call. What does that sort of journey look like for a franchisee from the moment you make a call to the point where you're starting to run your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, for us, as most franchisors, it starts with the inquiry and obviously managing that and gaining initial interest. I guess a bit differently. I know for a lot of franchisors, the discovery day works particularly well, where they get groups of people together. For us, we've tried to take a more personal approach. So rather than having group discussions, I will try and arrange a one-to-one meeting, hopefully face to face. We love welcoming people to Molly Maid House to have that. But obviously, for sometimes, for different reasons, it's not possible. So we'll do something virtually. But yeah, it's really kind of getting them here, understanding what it is that they're looking for, and to try and understand whether that is, our offering complements what they're looking for. And it's not going to be right for everyone. And again, one of the things I often say to people is, for you initially, it's just about the research. We can go through, we can do the meeting, we can put you in touch with franchise owners to speak to, which is an important element, I believe, in them speaking to other franchisees. We can share the numbers with them, and if they go away and do that research and come away deciding it's not for them, then that's great too. We'd much rather they come to that conclusion, because there's nothing worse than having someone that comes on board and then you're trying to kind of help them extricate them from the business, in some way. So
completely.
It's no good for them and it's no good for us. So yeah, it's about the research. So yeah, I think I touched upon speaking with other franchisees is really important. Interrogating the numbers, we try and be as transparent as possible. We're not trying to sell a dream. We're trying to sell someone, what is actually achievable. So we share figures with them that we know have been achieved by other franchisees within the business. I think that's really important, both on an average level, but also some of the top performers, so they can see what can be achieved. So I think that kind of transparency is really important, and that's where we then get to speaking to other franchise owners, and again we'll put them in touch with as many as they want. We usually I'll try and identify people that are either in similar situations or from similar backgrounds to try and really personalize their research for them, and then allow them to have kind of independent conversations, whether that's just a phone call or whether that's going to the office and having a meeting, whatever that might be. And then from there, if they're interested, we'll then kind of move through to the next phase, which would be application, putting them in touch with financing options, which again is really important, because people come with all different kind of financial situations. So if they need support, we can then direct them there. And then we have a really kind of structured plan. For us, what we don't want is the business to launch and them to be kind of sat there twiddling their thumbs. So we put a very much a plan in place, a marketing plan with the team here. We just mentioned earlier, we've got 2 on training next week, and we've had about a 7-week to 8-week lead time with them, where we've been kind of very much focused on marketing their local area. So we've got I think we've already got 10-12 inquiries already sat there waiting for them, which have already got estimates booked. So they're with us on training next week, and then the week after is usually when we'd have the launch of that business. And as I say, we've got people already waiting to to have that initial estimate, which is how we do that. And then obviously from there we'll get the cleans booked. So week 1 they'll be kind of hopefully up and running with a couple of customers on board, and then obviously snowballs from there. But that's a big part of our kind of pre-training.
Yeah, it's great, and I love that. There's a few things that have stuck out for me that are really good in this. The fact that you said you're not selling a dream. I think it's really, really important that people know that franchising is hard work. You're given tools, you're given support, but it's hard work still, and it still needs that work in order for it to be successful. And I think it's really important that you're transparent. One of the things I wanted to go through here, because I think this is really important when a prospective franchisee is considering this. At what point in that process does a commitment fall? So, is there a deposit that's paid? When is the sort of franchise agreement signed? Because there's some great things you do there. I love the face-to-face meeting, love the fact that you can meet other franchisees, discuss the numbers, but where does that commitment fall in the journey?
So I mean, once they've obviously had the meeting with us, spoke with franchisees, looked and digested the numbers, at that point, we'll then say to them, look, where are you at? Where do you want to go from here? Is it something you want to move forward with, or is it something you kind of interested in but not right now, or just not at all? So at that point, if it's something they're interested in, that's usually when we'll send out our application. relatively straightforward. And at that point, they would complete that and pay a deposit.
Okay.
And then so from that point, we usually then work on usually 6 to 8 weeks. And I would probably err on the 8 weeks as a kind of a better guide, because as I say, that allows us to then focus on things like marketing the business. We also provide them with a checklist, because clearly there's going to be things that they're going to need to do to get themselves ready to be able to start the business. So we'll give them a full checklist from registering for a limited company to registering for VAT, registering to be an employer, all those kind of important bits that they probably wouldn't even know where to start, but that's where our experience and knowledge comes in. So we can really guide them through that step by step. And then, as I say, that kind of 6 to 8 week lead time then gives us time to help them with those setup actions, to secure funding if that's required. And also in the background, we're starting that advertising process, so we can really give them the best opportunity to kick off with a nice fast start.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. It's great to sort of hear how that sort of plays out, because it's really important for people to understand where they're committing for. So I love that. And some great stuff that's happening beforehand, so that people can be comfortable, they're aligned. You said that, you understand them and they understand you. And, I think it's really important. I will quickly put up a comment here by Angie, because we're on this right now, so let's cover this one out. She's put, how long is that application process? I appreciate it can vary, but from the point you make that first email or phone call to the point that you are starting to run your business, where does that typically sit at?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, a lot of it is guided by them, really. For us, again, it's not about kind of we're not there to sell to them. We're there to provide them with information. And if that information then ends up leading them to deciding that Molly Maid's the right opportunity, then fantastic. So, for us, we're really guided by them. Some people, we've had people that have kind of, within, 2 weeks of having discussions and speak with franchise owners, we've got the application in. Other times it can be, a couple of months. So yeah, that part really does depend on them. I think the bit that we would try and be quite insistent on is that once someone has decided, that we have that kind of 8-week lead time from once they've kind of almost put the application in to once we're then looking to get them on training and get them launched, because, to say, for all the reasons that we've discussed, that's really important part of our process.
Get it? No, absolutely. No, that's fantastic. If you have just joined us today, this is Franchising Brand Stories, and today we are hearing the story of Molly Maid with the lovely Aaron, and it's been a fascinating story so far. And Franchising Brand Stories is brought to you by FranRec, specialist staff and executive recruiters to the UK franchise industry. So we have had a look about what happens in the time leading up to becoming a franchisee. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at what a typical day looks like for a franchisee. I think it's really important, if you're a prospective franchisee listening to this, somebody who's interested in franchising, you've built that picture as to who you might want to be, or who's right for the business. You understand what that process is going to look like. But I think it's really important to understand what a day might look like, because are you going to enjoy it? I think that's something that should always be looked at in the business. So try and explain to us what a day might look like.
Yeah, again, I think that this is where kind of speaking with other franchise owners really helps, because obviously they're living and breathing that day in, day out. I mean, we also run our local business here, which is great because it gives us a real understanding of what's involved, and we also use that as an academy for new franchise owners. But I mean, a typical day will be kind of checking the phone in the morning to check all the staff are in, which sometimes isn't the case, or that a customer might have decided they can't have the clean that day. So I mean, I think our business is a very fast-paced business, and that's something that it's not kind of sit back and watch it grow. It's something you have to work at. So you'll be checking your phone emails in the morning, probably getting into the office, kind of 8:30ish. When I say office, for a lot of our franchise owners, that could just be the room next door or the dining room table, because a lot of them run the business from home. So yeah, following on from that, they would then be checking any new customer inquiries that have come through. They'd be looking at the schedule for the day. So one of the ways in which we work is we provide bespoke in-home estimates for our customers. So we're going out and seeing potential customers' homes to really understand what their personal needs are, and then how we can tailor the service to fit that. So they may have some of those booked in for the day. They may be going out and doing some quality checks. Unlike lots of businesses, we don't have the luxury of kind of seeing our staff working in that environment. So sometimes for us, it is about having to go out and visit them within their cleans to see how they're getting on, and make sure we're delivering that high quality service for our customers. Afternoon time, maybe some more admin activities. I would say that the business kind of slows down in the afternoon, because a lot of the work, people want their homes cleaned kind of earlier in the day. They start to then come home, or children start coming home from school. It's not the ideal time either for us to be there, or for them to have us in their home. So, you know, yeah, by kind of 3:30, 4 o'clock, things are kind of quieting down, which is then a good time to catch up on any admin and things like that. I mean, I think back to when I started 15 or 16 years ago, the business was very much centered around kind of evening estimates, which, you know, obviously now with the way the world's changed, a lot of people work from home a lot of the time, but at least they can be at home sometime of the week. So I don't know any franchise owners now that do evening appointments. It's all done during the day. So yes, I guess that's kind of a typical day with the franchise owners. Throw some staff challenges in there as well, and you've probably got a good idea.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is the thing, isn't it? You know, when you're talking about what happens day to day, there's lots of challenges. Staff are always going to be one of those challenges, because staff are what makes your business successful. They are your business. Looking after them, making sure they're okay, looking after their welfare, making sure they're content in their job is really important. But we're human beings, so we have good and bad days. We're unwell. You know, things happen. So I think it's a good idea to go on to sort of the support side of things, and how you deal with some of those challenges, perhaps staff, maybe some other challenges at your franchisees. What's your sort of support network look like in the business?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as I say, you're absolutely right. I mean, for us, you know, we don't necessarily view, you know, challenges or opportunities, right? And it's how you deal with them. And I think, you know, going back to one of your earlier questions about kind of the qualities of our franchise owners, I mean, some of our best franchise owners, they're just great leaders, and you could put them in any business and they'd be successful because they're great leaders. And I think if you can forge that within your business, then that encourages, you know, your staff to be good operators within the business as well, and that's a big part of it. If you've got, you know, established teams, and you know they're good at what they do, then it makes your life, you know, so much easier. So for us as a support team, it is very much about trying to kind of develop that. And you know, some franchise owners that we've got maybe didn't come with those leadership qualities, so part of our role is to help them develop them, because again, we know that, you know, for businesses to succeed and grow, they need to have good teams in place, they need to be well organized. So again, we try and very much personalize that support. You know, we have a very close working relationship with our franchisees to try and help identify what their particular needs are, and then we try and find ways to help that. I mean, a lot of our support we try and kind of develop from our other franchise owners as well, because I think that's something that's really important, is when you've got, you know, 72 franchise owners to draw upon expertise and skills. It's about, you know, we're not kind of the, you know, the all-knowing, you know, we don't sit here thinking that we know everything. It's about kind of recycling that best practice. You know, we've got franchise owners that are growing at, you know, 20-30% a year, you know, so it's about hearing from those guys, what are you doing that's working particularly well in your business, and then being able to recycle that to others. And I think that's something that's really important. I mean, we have kind of 8 face-to-face meetings a year, which for us is kind of really important for our franchise owners to be able to do that. You know, we want to be able to do that face-to-face. It's all well and good being able to share stuff remotely, but getting people together is massively important for us. So yeah, we have 2 sets of regional meetings in 3 locations, North, South and Scotland, in the spring and autumn. We also then have a high growth meeting, which is where we get those high growth franchise owners together. And I think that's really important. It has 2 benefits. It gets those high growth franchise owners together and allows them to spend some time and kind of immerse themselves in those ones that are really doing the right things. But then I think the takeaways from that can be used to furnish the other franchise owners that maybe haven't been experiencing that growth for whatever reason. And then that can really help them, to fuel them, to try and help move them into that category moving forward. And then also, finally, we kick the year off with our R&R rest and relaxation weekend in the second week in January, and that's something that's kind of developed kind of post-COVID, where we want to kind of be able to start the year with a bang. So getting people together face to face is really important, and often it's as much as the day sessions are important, but so is having that glass of wine in the evening with them, having a beer at the bar, or having dinner and just talking about the business and what's working well and being able to share that.
Definitely. I love that. I love the fact that you've got, that R&R weekend, because within the social aspects of that, lots of light-hearted conversations can turn into really valuable support, can't they? And it's also, franchising is about not feeling alone sometimes. You've got a franchisor, you've got other franchisees, and getting together like that kind of cements that not feeling alone. You've got all these other people in the same position. You can just talk about ideas and chat in a sort of relaxed way. I love it. Really, really good. Great support. I'd like to come on to my favorite bit of the show, okay? Because I'm a firm believer that franchising really does change lives, and we meet some fantastic characters as well along the way. I'm sure over such a long period, there must be a lot of examples of, how you've changed the lives of you're in one of these businesses that you've got people that do the cleaning that are changing lives. Because if someone comes in and cleans the house of somebody that's, perhaps struggling, I know it. When my house is clean, I feel better. When things are nice and tidy and they look good, you feel better, don't you? So
yeah.
you even just with these simple tasks of cleaning someone's house, you're making someone feel better. You're freeing up their time so that they can spend that with their family, with their friends. But give us, if you can think of some examples of some of those stories.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's something that we actually really, so we have a specific award called the Shining Moment Award, which is something that we specifically give to staff members. So franchise owners are able to kind of contact us with some of these amazing stories that we hear, and we're able to then, award them with what we call a shining moment. So it's an acknowledgement of something that's kind of above and beyond. And I mean, there's been some, astonishing ones over the years. I think back to a recent one where they were cleaning for an older customer who, was on his own, had no friends and family, and sadly had passed away. And the two ladies who had been cleaning for a couple of years actually went to the funeral. And it was a very, there was only a couple of people that attended. Obviously, he, didn't have a big friends or family, and one of them actually stood up and just said a few words about him, which is completely above and beyond what we'd ever expect one of our staff members to do. But they do forge really strong relationships with customers. Another one where a customer, again, an elderly customer, had broken a leg and couldn't get out, but the team knew that every Friday they loved having fish and chips, and the husband wasn't able to do it. So they would stop at the fish and chip shop prior to the clean and drop off, or even not even necessarily if they were cleaning on that day, but just drop off fish and chips for the couple, sometimes even at their own cost. So yeah, it's those bits, and as I say, we acknowledge that through shining moments, because we really treasure those those experiences, because that's what builds great relationships with the customers and helps us to grow the business as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. What a lovely story as well, and I often think about a cleaning business. It's got similarities to a care business in some ways, right? Because in terms of sort of social interaction, if you are perhaps living on your own and you're using the service of a cleaner and someone comes in, there is a strong social interaction. You have it in shops as well. It's so important to that person, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes it's just companionship, and they get the bonus of having their house cleaned at the same time. So yeah, it just it does mean a lot to people.
Absolutely. And of course, when you're changing the lives of people that you're doing this service for, then you're changing the lives for the people that are rightly awarded these lovely shiny moments. I like that expression as well. But of course, that then filters up, doesn't it? Someone feels good because they've had their house clean, because they've got companionship. Then a member of staff feels good because they're delivering that. And then the franchisee feels good because they are delivering that service to as many people as they can. And that's their job, and if you do a job you love, you're not really going to work, are you? You know, they do say that. And of
Absolutely.
course, that finally filters up to the franchisor. And that's how good franchising should work.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Absolutely, Harvey. I think you're absolutely right. And as I say, that's definitely something that we encourage, within our local, within our local franchise owners, but then also within the local community. And we also do like a community sponsorship where we'll contribute £600 a year for them to develop those kind of strong bonds within their community, because we it's so important. And we had one recently who was sponsored a local Help the Aged bingo night, and she put some money towards it, but she also then went down and gave up her time to spend the evening with them and actually presented the winner with a Molly Maid clean. So again, it's something that we can do to support our franchisees, but it's something that they can then do to support the local community, which is something that's really important to us too.
Oh, that's fantastic. Again, really important when we're immersing our businesses in local communities for those to truly feel part of that local community. And, bingo is a really good way. You're clearing up at bingo as well, aren't you? Cleaning up at bingo. I'm desperate to try and or in a cleaning joke some way through this, but excellent. Well, look, if you have just joined us, this is Franchising Brand Stories, and today we heard the fantastic story of Molly Maid with Aaron. It's been a fantastic story. Please go back, check the replays for this, put in a comment even afterwards. I know there's a few comments there we haven't got to. It's because we have about 50 minutes for this, so we can always go back and have a look at those. But we really appreciate everybody who's here live and everybody who watches this in the future. And Franchising Brand Stories is brought to you by FranRec, specialist staff and executive recruiters to the UK franchise industry. So we are coming to the final part of today's story, and this is where we're going to go forward in time. And this is the time for the Franchising Brand Stories exclusive, okay? So you can tell us something about the future. So what sort of things are coming up in the future for Molly Maid? Some exciting things that are happening in the future.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think for us, we're super excited about just helping franchisees to continue this wave of demand that we're experiencing. For us this year, it's about riding the wave to be able to help them take advantage of the huge demand that we're still experiencing. Obviously, we've had some this year from the outside world, we've had some challenges thrown at us. So we've really focused on helping franchise owners to mitigate the impact of things like national insurance changes and things like that, so they can still kind of really take advantage of the the demand without jeopardizing the profitability or the wages of their staff. We've also recently launched our own online shop. So for us, obviously, for years, it's been about the cleaning service. For probably the last 10, 12 years now, we've had our own range of environmentally friendly cleaning products, which we've used to clean customers' homes. But as the professional kind of cleaning company that we are, we saw an opportunity to be able to kind of promote that to, nationally. Obviously, we only have coverage so far in 70 areas, but be able to sell cleaning products to help people to kind of either who are existing customers to clean the home, in the time that we're not there, but also for those that don't have the service at the moment, to be able to kind of get the brand in front of them. So we've launched our own online shop to be able to do that. So people can go on and they can buy those products. So for us, it's as much about promoting the brand as it is about giving back to franchisees. So again, the whole premise of this isn't necessarily a profit-making exercise for us, but it allows us to be able to give more money back to franchise owners. So we've got a mechanism that's built within that allows them to earn more, so they can earn a share of the revenue that comes from that, and also we can reduce the cost of their cleaning products, which ultimately is going to end up putting more on their bottom line as well. So for that, is something that we're hugely excited about, and that coupled with helping take advantage of that demand that's still out there is an exciting time for Molly Maid.
Fantastic. No, I love that, because you've always got to, as a franchisor, think of ways that you can help your franchisees with their profitability, but also in a way that's still ticking the boxes of helping the community, helping those people that are getting the service, and by adding that online shop, like you say, you're doing both of those things. So I love it. What a great thing to do. Well, we have come to the end of today's episode. So I would first of all like to thank everyone who's joined us here live, everyone who's going to watch this in the future. And particularly to you, Aaron, for sharing your story today. Thanks so much for being part of Franchising Brand Stories.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. And before we finally wrap things up today, we are just going to talk about what is happening both on our sister show, the Franchise Show, next week, and who is on Franchising Brand Stories. So on the Franchise Show, which will be next Tuesday, 8th of April, nearly said March, we will be talking about the franchise life cycle with the wonderful Robert Zapata and Red Boswell from the US of A. So please join us 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST for that. And next Thursday on Franchising Brand Stories, we are going to be hearing what's under the hat of Home Instead with the lovely Ruth Brown. So please join us 5:15 p.m. GMT and 12:15 EST for that one as well. So until next time, my lovely friends, take very good care and cheerio.
Thank you.